The Tears of God. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This book continues the story of the Arab sugar daddy and the beautiful Indian girl, and the story of the Indian child bride and the old Arab husband, and the story of the Indian Miss World and the rage of Muslims of the world, and also the story of Christina and the complete Jew. They have been written in English and translated into Arabic by the author Dr. Ahmed. This tale resonates with genuine love, strong resilience, and steadfast courage. I invite you to accompany me as I narrate the adventures of the extremely beautiful Indian girl, Aphrodite Khan, and her handsome American lover, Michael Lewinsky, in the Muslim world. Before we dive in the tapestry of the story, I would like to remind the reader this novel is narrated in 6 books. Book 1, The Arab Sugar Daddy and the Beautiful Indian Girl. Book 2, The Indian Child Bride and the Old Arab Husband. Book 3, The Indian Miss World and the Rage of Muslims of the World. Book 4, Christina and the Complete Jew. Book 5, The Tears of God, Jews, Blacks, and Muslim Women. And Book 6, The Hidden Life of the Prophet Muhammad. This is an intriguing epic story which exhibits resilience, love, and sacrifice. Book 5. Researching the social life of the Muslim woman in the Islamic world. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief passages from a review for printing in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this novel are fictional, and any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is merely coincidental. Chapter 1. The Pseudo-Embracement of Islam. After the newly married lovers settled down in the States, the first idea that came to Christina's mind was to write her tragic life story and publish it as a book. She wants the entire world to know the abuse, captivity, rape, injustice, and other evils that she went through, especially at the hands of 2 Muslim old men, the Saudi business tycoon, Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed, and the greatest Indian film director in Bollywood, Mr. Mahmood Khan. Those 2 evil men took advantage of a religion that permits and encourages the rape and abuse of underage girls. One of them began to rape her through the Islamic halal marriage when she was a mere child of 7 years. Although the idea of his Indian wife sounded noble, her American husband strongly opposed it. Michael argued that such a book is going to expose Christina to the attack of ruthless Muslim terrorists. He reminded her of her controversial statements about the Prophet Muhammad and the Quran when she was crowned Miss World in London, which resulted in the loss of her Muslim husband and their daughter. She was accused of saying the Prophet Muhammad is my foot and threatened to spit in their holy Quran. Similarly, Michael anticipated that Muslims would label her book as a fabrication concocted by an evil ex-Muslima, who is an apostate Muslim woman, who married an ex-Yehudi who is a hater of Islam and Muslims. He is likewise an ex-Jewish man who became a Christian man, who is considered by Christians has become a complete Jew. Due to their bitter hatred of Islam, those 2 infidels want to defame their infallible Prophet Muhammad and destroy their beautiful religion, which all Muslims of the world consider as the religion of peace. Notwithstanding, the Indian girl Christina has become adamant and insisted on writing and producing her book. The problem that such a pivotal issue may create a division between husband and wife has not missed the notice of the shrewd mind of the American boy Michael. He agreed to work out a plan based on a compromise that would make both happy. Eventually, he suggested that instead of his wife's life story, they could author a book about the life and abuse of women in Muslim societies. According to his new idea, since his wife now has over $120 million and does not know what to do with such great wealth, they must go on an overseas trip and live a while in some Muslim countries. When they are over there, they can start a small charitable organization to help poor Muslim women and children and collect social and religious data for their book. When and only when they are safely back to America, they can draft a book based on first-hand eyewitness accounts. The idea involved some risk, but Michael suggested that they must take fake identities. Both husband and wife must change their first and last names and pretend to be newly converted American Muslims. Immediately, the Indian wife became thrilled with the brilliant idea and agreed to everything her American husband suggested. Before executing their overseas undercover plan, the newly wedded couple traveled to a nearby city and met with the imam of a big mosque and expressed their desire to embrace Islam. The imam was one of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood in Cairo. After the Muslim Brotherhood rule was ousted from power through a military coup d'état, he fled from the Egyptian strict regime of President Abdul Fattah al-Sisi, crossed the border on foot, and entered Libya. Then he smuggled himself to Europe on a boat across the Mediterranean Sea. He became a persecuted political refugee in the Netherlands and finally got resettled in the United States of America a few years ago. He gladly welcomed the newly wedded American couple Michael and Christina and showed great interest and zeal in adding them to his religious order. He made them repeat after him the Shahada, the Islamic creed for embracing Islam. Michael and Christina repeated some difficult phrases in Arabic which they understood none of them, Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah, and Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. The Egyptian imam translated the phrases after he ordered the couple to say them after him. I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Although this is the official Shahada of Sunni Islam, still the Egyptian imam knows that the American guy Michael and the Indian girl Christina are from a Christian background. He read them the following hadith of the Prophet of Islam, narrated on the authority of Ubadah ibn Samit, that the Messenger of Allah, may peace be upon him, observed, he who said, there is no God but Allah, he is one and there is no associate with him, that Muhammad is his servant and his messenger, that Christ is his servant and the son of his slave girl, and his word which he communicated to Mary, and he is his spirit, that paradise is a fact and hell is a fact, Allah would make him. He who affirms these truths enter paradise through any one of its 8 doors which he would like. Sahih Muslim. Book 1, Hadith number 43. After that, the Imam asked them once again to repeat after him the following confession of the Islamic faith. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. I bear witness that Jesus is his servant, word, spirit, and the son of his slave girl, Mary. And we bear witness that paradise and hell are true. After their pseudo-embracement of Islam, the Imam sent the newly converted Muslim couple to the washroom. Michael is escorted to the men's washroom by one of his Muslim brothers and Christina accompanies a Muslim sister to the women's toilet. Then the two lovers have been taught by their new brethren in Islam how to do the Islamic ablution. When they returned, the Imam asked them to attend their first prayer with their Muslim brothers and sisters and have dinner in the mosque. After that, the couple has been taught how to perform the prayer. Before the congregational prayer is commenced, the couple have been separated on a gender basis. It is strictly forbidden in Islam that in no uncertain terms, men and women do not stand side by side or shoulder to shoulder and perform their prayer. They are not even permitted to perform their prayer together in the same room. Moreover, women under no circumstances can lead men and women in prayer. It happened once in the history of Islam, and that daring Muslim woman was condemned as an infidel and apostate, and her prayer was declared null by the Muslim scholars of the Al-Azhar Al-Sharif University and many more Muslim clerics all over the world. Her name is Dr. Amina Wadud. She was born to an African-American family as a Methodist Christian girl in Bethesda, Maryland, but when she was 20 years old, she pronounced the Shahada and became a Muslima. Then she changed her name from Mary Teasley to Amina Wadud. Before she retired in 2008, Dr. Wadud worked as an associate professor of religion and philosophy at Virginia Commonwealth University. No mosque in the entire United States of America agreed to allow her to conduct her mixed prayer of men and women in its facilities until finally, she did it in a Catholic church. This controversial prayer took place on Friday, March 18, 2005. According to a survey conducted in 2010 by the USA Today newspaper, there are 2,106 mosques in the USA. After the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, the number of mosques in the states rose dramatically from 1,109 places of worship for Muslims in the year 2000 to 2,106 mosques in the year 2010. Michael remained in the main prayer hall downstairs, and Christina was sent to the women's upstairs prayer hall. Before she is admitted to the prayer hall, Christina is asked by an elderly woman whether she is menstruating, and when she answers negatively, she is declared holy enough to join the female group in their prayer. Shortly after the 5-minute prayer, the new converts have been allowed to meet again in the dining hall. It is during their welcoming dinner that the Egyptian imam, in a polite manner, and with a big smile decorating his bearded face, said that it is imperative for Michael and Christina must discard their infidel names and take Muslim names. He proposed that Michael can change his name to Malik. Malik is a corruption of the Jewish name Michael. In the Holy Bible, the name Michael is an archangel, but in Islam, Malik is the keeper of the gates of hell. Either it is unlawful for the men to change a woman's name, or out of politeness, only God knows. The Imam asked his newly joined young sister, Christina, to decide which Islamic name she loved to have. The only two Muslim names she knows are her mother's name Rehana, and Ifat, which is her childhood name. Being still harboring some grudge against her Muslim mother who denied and betrayed her in the Mumbai courtroom, Christina rejected the first name. Likewise, she discarded the second name because it always reminded her of her kidnap and rape by the evil Saudi old man, Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed. The other two dear names in her heart are Aphrodite and Christina. The first name is always a reminder to her of her glorious and golden period of success when she acted in a leading role in a movie at Bollywood, and when she was crowned Miss India and Miss World. The second name also is holy and very dear to her. It represents her deliverance from the domain of Satan and her conversion to Christianity. Unfortunately, her precious name Christina is disqualified and rejected as a filthy infidel name by the Imam. Therefore, Christina said softly, "I prefer to change my name to Aphrodite." "I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed devil," shouted the Imam. "My young sister, how could you come out of a false and corrupted religion, and then choose the name of a pagan goddess? Please, my dear sister, choose a name from among the wives and daughters of our blessed Prophet Muhammad, may peace and prayers of Allah be upon him." Christina knows none of the names of the wives and daughters of Muhammad. She looked at her husband for help. But her American husband does not know in this regard either. One of the sisters volunteered to choose on her behalf. "I prefer to choose the name Malaika for my new sister in Islam." In the Swahili language, that name means angel. The sister who chose that beautiful name is originally from Mombasa City, in Kenya. She is so much fascinated by the unmatchable beauty of her new Muslim sister, and hence decides to name her an angel. When this African girl saw the former Miss World walking inside the mosque, she whispered in the ear of another sister, "Subhanallah. This girl is not a human being. She is an angel." Everybody seemed to like the new name. However, before the beautiful name is confirmed on her, another sister out of jealousy suggested the name Maria. She is a Pakistani immigrant. Due to hatred and envy, she disliked the beautiful new convert. Many Pakistani Muslims hate every Indian, even Indian Muslims, and consider them not true Muslims, but betrayers and collaborators with their Hindu enemies. If they are true Muslims, then they should leave Hindustan and move to Pakistan, is a phrase often heard. The Imam strongly opposed the name Maria because it sounded like a Christian woman's name. In the biography of the Messenger of Allah, Maria the Copt was just a domestic help. She was a slave to the Prophet Muhammad and used to help his 13 wives with their house chores. She did not convert to Islam and died in her kufr, or unbelief, as a Christian woman. The Prophet Muhammad used to have sex with her without marrying her and fathered with her his only son Ibrahim, without the sanctity of Islamic marriage. For that reason, Maria was not counted among the mothers of the faithful, the wives of the Prophet of Islam. Another leader in the mosque seconded the justification of the Imam, and accordingly, Christina became Malaika. After changing their first names, the Imam demanded that the couple must as well get rid of their last name, Lewinsky. He could not make out what is the religious root of that Western name. However, his memory suddenly recollected the presidential scandal that was almost about to impeach the former American president, Bill Clinton. He remembered that the girl involved in that sex scandal was a beautiful Jewish young woman called Monica Lewinsky. Therefore, suspecting it is a Jewish name, the Imam abhorred it. He immediately produced a list of Muslim names, which all belonged to the Messenger of Islam: Muhammad, Mahmud, Mustafa, Ahmed, Taha, Yasin, al-Bashir, Mudassir, and Muzammil. Nonetheless, this time the Indian wife put her foot down and insisted on having her previous Muslim family name, Khan. For Pakistani and Indian Muslims, the name Khan is more precious than silver and gold and even preferable to the name Muhammad. Whereas the Arabic name Muhammad means the one who has been praised, the Urdu name Khan means the King of Kings. Chapter 2. On being a good Muslim woman and wife. After the changing of the names of the newly married American couple who converted from Christianity to Islam, Michael and Christina to Malik and Malaika, and their last name from Lewinsky to Khan, the Egyptian Imam came up with an important religious obligation, which made the two lovers extremely angry. According to him, since both Malik and Malaika are new Muslim converts, he recommended that both of them must be genitally circumcised. At first, this compulsory Islamic obligation created great disputation between the Imam and the new converts. Naturally, the other brothers and sisters backed the decision of their religious leader. After much argument from one side and the counter-disputation from the other side, which is backed by some authentic hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad, the issue is solved with a compromise. Malik was able to save his wife Malaika from becoming a genitally mutilated girl. He argued that female genital mutilation is barbaric, painful, and harms the woman. Besides that, he reminded them it is illegal in the states to practice it. Despite his argument and justification, Malaika has been given the right to decide whether she wants to be religiously cleansed through female circumcision, which is the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, and therefore becomes a holy Muslim woman in her secret private parts. She chose to remain as God created her. But Malik has been convinced by hook or by crook to undergo the circumcision on the following day. He has been told that he cannot be considered a complete Muslim man unless he is circumcised. He also has been reminded that Allah may not admit him in his paradise if he does not get circumcised after his conversion from distorted Christianity to the truth of Islam. He then has been given the address of a Pakistani Muslim doctor who can circumcise him without asking him to pay any fees for the circumcision procedure. Although he acquiesced, still the American boy has determined in his heart never to undergo circumcision. He knows his conversion to Islam is a pseudo-conversion, and hence it does not matter to him if the God Allah does not allow him to enter his hell, and also, he is not interested in having his so-called 72 virgins. For the American husband, his Indian wife who is a former Miss World is 100 times more beautiful and hotter than those imaginary 72 virgins of paradise. Following that hotly debated topic, Malik and Malaika have been given a small book of the Holy Quran for beginners called Gozo Amma. It contained only the short surahs. Even so, they have been advised by the Imam to buy a complete copy of the Holy Quran in English with the translation of Yusuf Ali. Moreover, they have been ordered to attend the mosque regularly so that they can learn more about their new faith. They are also told to cut ties with all their infidel friends, and if it is possible their relatives too, and to always seek the company of their Muslim brothers and sisters. Finally, the Egyptian Imam took the newly converted American couple to his office, spent time with them, and asked them hundreds of embarrassing questions. Many of his inquiries are related to their marital relationship. He asked them how they met, when they met, in which country they met, what they did before they got married, any physical contact before their marriage, such as hugging, kissing, bodily caressing, sexual fondling, whether they had practiced premarital sex to find out whether they were sexually compatible, or had they involved in pornographic sex, what is the name of the priest who conducted their Christian marriage, where it took place, and how was it done. As a result of that private interview, the Imam told them to forget about their Christian marriage, and have an Islamic blessed marriage in accordance with the Sunnah of Allah, and His infallible Messenger Muhammad. The newly converted to Islam Christian couple tried desperately to prevent their new religious leader from remarrying them again, but they could not succeed. The so-called blessed Islamic marriage ceremony took place shortly after their conversion, and is attended by a few Muslim brothers and sisters. Then the bridegroom, his bride, the Egyptian imam who conducted the marriage, and all other Muslim brothers and sisters enjoyed the delicious food that had been cooked by some immigrant women. After their Islamic halal marriage, the newly wedded couple received an official Islamic marriage certificate, making it for the Indian bride her marriage number 7th. Her first husband was Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed, her second husband was Mahmud Khan, her third husband was Uncle Jimmy, her fourth husband was Rahul Patel, her fifth husband was Bruno Fernandez, her sixth husband was Michael Lewinsky, and her seventh husband was Malik Khan. The matter has not stopped with changing her religion and name and remarrying her with her husband, but Malaika is required to dress and behave like a good Muslim wife. The wife of the Imam of the mosque wants to convince her husband to encourage the new Indian Muslim girl to cover her entire face, because she is a great temptation to pious Muslim men in the mosque and all other males on the streets. She argued that the Indian wife has extremely beautiful and sexy eyes. Nevertheless, Malik rejected that demand and said he did not want to walk on the street with a wife who looked like a black ghost or a scary Halloween witch. He further said everyone would think he is the one who ordered her to put on the demeaning black burqa and cover her face with the ugly niqab. Therefore, Malaika bought an Islamic abaya and hijab and covered her body from head to toe except for her face and a little part of her hands. She has been informed the Quran instructs all Muslim women to don hijabs. Surah Al-Nur 24, verse 31, and Surah Al-Ahzab 33, verse 59. This imperative religious obligation is also supported by the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad. When the verse was revealed which said that they should wrap their outer garments over their breasts, the women of Ansar came out as if they had crows hanging down over their heads by wearing outer garments. Sunan Abu Dawud Book 32, page 4090. Aisha used to say, when the verse they should wrap their veils kamar over their breasts jiyab was revealed, the Muslim ladies had cut their waist sheets at the edges and veiled themselves, and covered their heads and faces with the cut pieces of cloth. Sahih Muslim, Book 6, Volume 60, Hadith number 282. The newly converted wife Malaika Khan is also stopped from putting on shirts, trousers, and short pants. This is because the Prophet Muhammad said, Allah cursed the men who put on women's clothes and the woman who put on men's clothes. Of course, she is strictly banned from wearing bikinis or visiting any swimming pool or beach. She is not supposed to practice any sports or go to the gym. The wife of the Imam has made her believe that as a woman she poses a great danger to men and society. Therefore, she also is forbidden from shaking hands with men. Moreover, the wife of the Imam of the mosque taught the Indian wife Malaika what her duties as a Muslim wife are, and what her husband's rights are over her. The Prophet also said, by the one in whose hand is the soul of Muhammad, no woman can fulfill her duty towards Allah until she fulfills her duty towards her husband. If he asks her for intimacy, even if she is on her camel saddle, she should not refuse. Sunan Ibn Majah, Book 9, Hadith number 1926. In this regard, a prominent Malaysian Islamic scholar, Parak Mufti Tan Sri Harusani Zakaria said, even the Prophet says even when they're riding on the back of the camel when the husband asks her, she must give, he exclaimed, so there's no such thing as rape in marriage. This is made by European people, why should we follow? In other words, the Muslim husband is allowed to rape his wife if she refused to sleep with him. The Prophet of Allah said, when a man calls his wife to satisfy his desire, let her come to him though she is occupied at the oven. Mishkat al-Masabi. Book 1. Hadith number 61. In addition, the Prophet said, had I ordered anybody to prostrate before anyone, I would have ordered women to prostrate before their husbands on account of men's rights over the women ordained by Allah. Mishkat al-Masabi, Hadith number 70. Also, the Indian wife is forbidden from using perfume. Everything the wife of the Imam of the mosque ordered her to do, she backed it up with a verse from the Quran or a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad. For instance, the above restriction is based on an authentic hadith uttered by the Prophet Muhammad. The woman who applies perfume on herself and passes through a gathering of men is an adulteress. Sunan Abu Dawud and Sunan at-Tirmizi. This hadith has also been reported by Al-Nasi'i, Ibn Khuzaymah, and Ibn Hibban. Any woman who perfumed herself and passes by a group of people so that her scent reaches the men, she is an adulteress. Malaika has been told that as a woman, she is just Satan, and therefore she poses a great danger to men and society. In this regard, the Prophet Muhammad said, the woman is a wara, or bare naked. When she goes outside the house, the devil takes charge of her. He also said, when the woman comes, she comes in the form of Satan, and when she retreats in the shape of the devil. He also said, be wary and cautious of this world and be wary and cautious of women. Verily, the first trial that afflicted the tribes of Israel was concerning women, Sahih Muslim. Again, the Prophet said, I have not left behind me any temptations more harmful for men than women, Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. As a Muslim woman, Malaika is told it is unlawful for her to travel from her city to another city, or another country, without having a muharram such as her father and brother. The Prophet Muhammad said, a woman does not travel except with a mahram, Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. A muharram means a relative to the woman such as her father, brother, and grandfather whom she can neither marry nor commit adultery with any one of them. Of course, she can go out of her house or travel anywhere with her lawful Muslim husband. Nevertheless, the Arab wife of the Egyptian Imam did not teach Malaika the misogynistic hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad and verses of the Quran that treat the woman like a wild female brute or lower than a dumb animal. For instance, she did not tell her about female genital mutilation, wife beating, female underage marriage and child marriage, polygamy, the testimony of the woman in court equals half of the man's testimony, the share of the woman in inheritance half of the male's share, the inability of the woman to divorce her husband while the husband can divorce her with or without a cause. Custody of the children after divorce goes to the father, among many more evil teachings against women. Malaika thought that she became a Christian nun when she began to follow the strict rules and regulations of Islam. The only dividing line between her and the Catholic nun is that in Islam she can marry a man and have sex. After attending that mosque for a couple of months, and learning enough about Islam's religious practices and rituals, Malik and Malaika shared their overseas trip plan of traveling to the Muslim world with their religious leader, and sought his advice. The Egyptian Imam welcomed the idea with boundless joy, and advised them to travel to Egypt and help their poor Muslim brothers and sisters in that great Islamic nation. He praised the Muslim Egyptians and the prestigious Islamic Learning Center of the Al-Azhar Al-Sharif University. He claimed to be a graduate of that great learning center of Islam. While he is praising the greatness of his former country, he weeps until tears have fallen from his red eyes, and wetted his long white beard. He claimed that Al-Azhar University is the first founded university in the world. His claim is false because Al-Azhar Al-Sharif was only ratified as a university in 1961. Before that, it was merely an Islamic madrasa, or a religious school. Hundreds of universities were founded before that date in many European countries, in the United States of America, South America, Asia, and Africa. In 1902, the British founded the first university college for higher education in the Arab world, which came to be known as Victoria College, in Cairo, and has a branch in Alexandria, Egypt. The new college was to raise the standard of imperial education and free it from the influences of the Muslim madrasas, Islamic religious schools, which made the British Foreign Office uneasy. Most of the Arab leaders who took over after the British left were graduates of Victoria College. Those who received religious teachings from the Al-Azhar Al-Sharif University revolted against those British-installed Arab leaders and founded the famous Islamic movement of the Muslim Brotherhood, out of which came the various branches of the Islamic Jihad movements. As a matter of fact, there are 86 operating Salafi jihadist groups in the world today. The evilest of them are Al-Qaeda and Taliban in Afghanistan, Hamas in Gaza, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades in West Bank, Boko Haram in Nigeria, Al-Shabaab in Somalia, Janjaweed in Sudan, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Lashkar-Taiba in Pakistan, CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations in the USA, Al-Muhajirin in London at the United Kingdom, and has a branch in Australia, and the Islamic Caliphate of ISIS in Syria and Iraq, and their female counterpart, which is called Al-Qansa Female Brigades. All those Islamic groups revolted against the Western educational system, which they considered a kind of brainwashing of Muslims. They all agreed upon the importance of restoring the compulsory obligation of the Islamic Jihad, or armed struggle, for spreading Islam all over the world and fighting the influences of the West, restoring the Islamic Caliphate government, and implementing the Sharia law. The Egyptian Imam assured Malik and Malaika that by traveling to that great Islamic nation they are going to live among pious men and righteous women. He claimed that all over Egypt there are no liquor stores, bars, nightclubs, beaches full of naked young women, and immoral mixing between the sexes. Also, there are not thousands of prostitutes like those American girls who are walking half-naked on the streets of New York and Los Angeles. They will not find young men and women living together without marriages, men and men getting married as gay people and practicing sodomy, and women living together as lesbians, and there are no devils living side by side with human beings as in America and Europe. He promised to give them letters of recommendation to very prominent Muslim leaders in Cairo city. But before traveling to Egypt, the Imam insisted that the couple must first visit the House of Allah in Mecca and perform the compulsory Hajj rituals in Saudi Arabia. The two newly converted Americans to Islam trusted the words of their religious leader and immediately set the wheels of their overseas trip plan in motion. Chapter 3. A visit to the House of Allah in Mecca. Malik and Malaika arrived at the Jeddah International Airport after an exceedingly long trip from the United States of America to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The first thing that caught their attention was the huge masses of passengers. Every year, over 2 million Muslims from all over the world arrive in Saudi Arabia to perform the Hajj rituals. The person can't move one step forward in that crowded arrival hall without touching or being touched by a stranger. Even a young married woman like Malaika cannot prevent male passengers from physically contacting her body and violating her privacy. Many times, she felt a stranger man's hands purposely touching her chest, breasts, buttocks, legs, and parts around her private parts. The only thing she can do is to keep pushing away those hands and protect her body as much as she can. More than once, she felt a male body on her backside rubbing his erect phallus on her big buttocks. To prevent it, the Indian wife asked her American husband to watch her back. Whenever Malik walked behind her and his body shielded her back, Malaika found herself being exposed from the front, and male hands would keep reaching out to her breasts and touching them. Finally, she understood that she could do nothing to stop those evil men from forcing themselves on her body. When they reached the Jeddah International Airport authorities, the Saudi police ordered the American couple to surrender their passports, cell phones, cameras, laptops, and any other electronic devices. They are told that those belongings shall be returned to them on the day of their departure out of the Saudi kingdom. It took them over 2 hours to emerge out of the sea of passengers and climb into a crowded bus. Fortunately, as soon as they entered the bus, Malaika found an empty seat between two Arab women. When she sat, she felt her dress was wet from behind. She stretched her hand and examined the liquid that was smearing her long abaya. She is shocked when she finds semen on her dress. She became extremely angry. She understood she could do nothing to punish that wicked men who dared to abuse her to that extent. She then opened her handbag, took out her handkerchief, and wiped away the semen. Immediately, she threw her hanky inside the bus as if it were dirty toilet paper. If she could, she would have flushed it down through the window. The bus took over 2 hours to travel a distance of 80 kilometers between Jeddah City and the holy city of Mecca. The car can cover that distance in less than an hour on normal days. When they reached the Muslims' holiest city on earth, the bus dropped them at a place where the rituals of the Hajj were supposed to commence. Once again, the couple found themselves in a more crowded place than the airport arrival hall. They can hardly advance one step forward without pushing and forcing their way through the masses of pilgrims. There are no separate places for ladies. Males and females are mixing freely. There are also no restrictions on the movements of women. Even the washrooms are open for both sexes. Every woman is wearing the Islamic hijab and abaya, while her face and hands are exposed. Women are not permitted to perform the Hajj rituals while their faces are covered by niqabs or burqas. Ironically, women are not allowed to reveal their faces and expose their hands in any public place in the entire Kingdom of Saudi Arabia except in the two holy cities of Mecca and Medina. Male pilgrims are hardly covering their bodies. They are wrapping their lower parts, while their upper parts are half exposed. Men are not allowed to wear any underwear while performing the Hajj rituals. Every male pilgrim is covering his body with a small white sheet of linen known as the ihram dress. If anyone else stepped on that bedsheet-like covering, the male pilgrim would become fully naked. Malaika is astonished when she sees Malik and other male pilgrims dressed up in those semi-naked garments. Even men on beaches in the States may not agree to come out in public in those shameful costumes. Once again, Malaika found herself facing annoying sexual harassment by the male pilgrims. Her marvelous beauty and sexy body made her a marked target for lustful men. This time, the harassment is more serious than the previous one. She regretted coming to this hellish country. When she was in America, she heard many stories about the strict segregation between males and females in Arab countries, especially in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In addition, her childhood memory still retains some images of Saudi women of Jeddah who wrapped their entire bodies and concealed their faces with those black abayas and niqabs. Her first day in the holy city of the Muslims refuted those claims and childhood memories. When she was 7 years old child, Malaika was brought by her Muslim mother Rehana, who came to work as a maidservant in a Saudi house in Jeddah City. The cultural shock that overtook Malaika's surprise compelled Malik to try to educate his wife on some of the little information he gathered at college about the Hajj. He told her that the Hajj rituals are religious practices, which the pagans of Arabia practiced hundreds of years before the advent of Islam. The Islamic Hajj has nothing to do with the two Abrahamic religions, Judaism and Christianity. In the olden days, these rituals were called by the Arab polytheist hahak, which means rubbing of the body. The Arab pagan women used to rub their bodies against the Kaaba, the black house of their moon god Allah, and apply their menses blood on the black stone to increase their fertility. Pagan men, on the other hand, performed their rituals naked. Instead of rubbing themselves, they used to kiss the black stone. Women, likewise, used to perform the Hajj rituals fully naked, but at night, while the men performed them while they were stark naked in the day. Islam incorporated with its religious duties all the pagan rituals of the Hajj with slight changes. According to the Arab historian Abu Zanad, who wrote in 747 AD, Hajj rituals and the fasting of Ramadan are pagan ceremonies practiced by the Arab Sabaeans and Haranians. Ramadan predated Islam. It originated in the ancient Arabian Baal worship. Muhammad's father and grandfather were pagans who worshipped Baal. Muhammad followed the religion of his father and grandfather and fasted from childhood as a Baal believer. Additionally, from an early age, Muhammad practiced Hajj rituals which were also part of the pagan Arabs' worship of the moon god Baal. Narrated Asim, I asked Anas ibn Malik, did you used to dislike performing tawaf between Safa and Marwa? He said, yes, as it was of the rituals of the days of Jahiliyyah, ceremonies of the pagan Arabs who lived before the advent of the Islamic religion, till Allah revealed, verily. The two mountains, as Safa and Al-Marwa, are among the symbols of Allah. It is, therefore, no sin for him who performs the pilgrimage to Kaaba or performs Umrah, to perform tawaf between them. Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 2, Book 26, page 710, Quran, Surah al-Baqarah 2, verse 158. Al-Safa and Al-Marwa originally were two idols of the Quraysh tribe named Asaf and Naila. Those two idols were placed in two mountains known as Al-Safa and Al-Marwa. The polytheist Arabs used to worship those idols. According to the Jordanian historian, Dr. Rafat Amari, Asaf and Naila were the names of a Jewish husband and his wife who claimed to be gods and made the pagan Arabs worship them. After their death, the Arabs continued to worship them as Al-Safa and Al-Marwa. Dr. Amari maintained that Asaf and Naila had sex inside the holy Kaaba, and for that transgression, God punished them by transforming them into the two stony idols, Al-Safa and Al-Marwa. Muhammad incorporated in his Quran this pagan ritual of Al-Safa and Al-Marwa, Surah al-Baqarah 2, verse 158. The Arabian Baal religion is mentioned in the Quran in Surah Al-Hajj 22, verse 17, Surah al-Baqarah 2, verse 62, and Surah al-Ma'idah 5, verse 69. The Quran and the Sunnah incorporated many practices and rituals of the pagan Arab polytheists. Muhammad had also borrowed extensively from the Sabaeans of Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. The Sabaeans were also Arab tribes who observed fasting 30 days in the year, the holy month of Ramadan, and prayed 7 times in the day. Islam retained 5 of them. Moreover, they celebrated twice in the year, the first one immediately after completing 30 days of fasting, and the second during their visit to Mecca for performing the Hajj rituals. Today Muslims celebrate the same after Ramadan and during the Hajj. Many Muslim historians, commentators, and scholars openly admitted that Islam is the continuation of the pagan Arabs' god Baal worship. See Ibn Hazm, Volume 1, page number 34, Ibn al-Jawzi, page number 84, Al-Masudi in Muraj al-Thahab, Volume 2, page number 213, Ibn Hajar in Al-Isaba, Volume 4, page number 315, and Tafsir al-Tabari, Volume 16, page number 56. Chapter 4. The worship of the black stone during the Hajj rituals. The ancient pagan Hajj rituals are a temple prostitution practice. It centered around the worship of the black stone. Women offered themselves to men as part of the pagan worship of their many idols, male gods and female goddesses. The ancient Canaanite god Baal, or El, the god of fertility to the ancient Arabs, was known as Ilah, the plural is Allah. The black stone was considered the cornerstone of the Black Kaaba. The pagan Arab women came to the Black House of Allah every year to perform the Hajj rituals and offer themselves to the male pilgrims as temple prostitutes. Allah had 3 daughters, Al-Lat, Al-Uzza, and Manat. Those 3 female goddesses represented all women. Before the advent of Islam, there were 360 idols inside and around the area of the Black House. Although Islam removed all idols from the Kaaba, it spared the black stone. An Egyptian Muslim scholar known as Dr. Sayyid Mahmud al-Kimni said that the black stone was made in the shape of a woman's vagina. Back then Arab pagans worshipped the private parts of the woman, and that is also why the women would apply their menses blood on the vagina like black stone, and men continue to kiss it to the present day. According to the renowned Muslim historian, Al-Tabari, the Kaaba's black stone used to be white, but turned black because it was touched and smeared by the fingers and the hands of the pagan Arab women who were having their menses. Al-Tabari. Book 1. Page number 298. Today, due to the crowd, a female pilgrim may not be able to reach the black stone and touch it with her fingers, but she is required to point her right hand towards it from afar. The Muslim man is expected to try kissing it at least once during his 7 circling the Kaaba. According to Islamic theology, the kissing of the black stone does not have much spiritual significance, but Muslim men are expected to do it because the Prophet Muhammad used to kiss it whenever he performed his Hajj rituals. The second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, said while he was kissing the black stone, "I know you are just a stone, and can do no good or bad to me, but I am kissing you because I saw the Messenger of Allah kissing you." The Caliph Umar might not know why the Prophet Muhammad had kissed the black stone, but for the pagan Arabs, the kissing of that stone was a form of worshipping the woman's vagina. Muslim men until today are continuing to worship the vagina of the woman whether they know it or not. Therefore, Muslims should not make fun of the Indian Jains who worship the phallus of Mahavira, the founder of their religion Jainism, because Muslim men worship the pussy of the woman until the present day. Present-day Hajj rituals begin with the Kaaba, but are extended to other places. There are 5 rituals that every pilgrim must perform. Each pilgrim walks counterclockwise 7 times around the Kaaba, the cube-shaped small black building that acts as the Muslim direction of prayer, runs back and forth between the hills of Al-Safa and Al-Marwa, drinks from the Zamzam well, goes to the plains of Mount Arafat to stand in vigil and throws stones in a ritual stoning of the devil, symbolizing the stoning of Satan. Zamzam well's water is considered to be holy water that heals sickness, quenches thirst, satisfies hunger, and bestows a blessing on the person who drinks it. First of all, the original Zamzam well's water dried up many centuries ago. Nevertheless, the Saudi Hajj authorities supply ordinary water to the well through huge underground connected water lines. Of course, this fact is concealed from the pilgrims. Secondly, in May 2011 a BBC investigation found there is fraudulent water sold as Zamzam water in the UK, which involves high health risks. Those 5 Hajj rituals must be completed in 5 days, starting on the 8th day and ending on the 12th day of Dhul Hijjah, the month of Hajj. Before the advent of Islam, the 2 hills of Al-Safa and Al-Marwa had one idol in each. The Arab polytheists used to run from one hill to the other and bow down to each idol. In addition, the polytheists used to throw stones at the dying sun at sunset, but Islam changed it to stoning Satan. They used to believe it was their religious duty to destroy to death the old sun so Allah would send them a new sun for their new year. Muslim pilgrims today believe they can stone to death the devil. Satan is a fallen angel, and angels are spirits. How can someone stone a spiritual angel with stones? The same stones will be collected and kept for next year to be used again for the same purpose. The problem: each year hundreds of pilgrims get hit on their heads by stray stones, with some being seriously injured. Many pilgrims were killed during the stampedes at Al-Safa and Al-Marwa. Thousands of pilgrims are killed yearly during these chaotic pagan rituals. According to the New York Times, on September 24, 2015, the death toll of pilgrims who died due to stampede reached 2,411 persons in one single year. New York Times, by Rick Gladstone, December 10, 2015. Saudi thugs and Hajj mafia kidnap foreign underage girls and young women, and then take them to the Sahara Desert, rape them, and murder them yearly. Consequently, we can conclude that the Islamic Hajj is a dangerous, immoral, inhumane, and satanic ritual. During those 5 days, the beautiful Indian wife Malaika Khan went through countless sexual harassment incidents. She could not believe Muslim men who came over to perform a religious obligation would violate women on a similar pilgrimage. Young women are not plentiful, and so she became a highly visible target for sexual harassment everywhere her feet took her. Her American husband Malik Khan quarreled many times with those evil men who made his wife an object of their sexual fantasies. Those male pilgrims who could not reach her physically kept staring at her, as if she were walking bare naked in front of their eyes. In short, Malaika endured a lot during those 5 days of performing those satanic rituals. Unfortunately, what the American couple came to see and study in the Muslim world is not to be found in Mecca. They came to see how Saudi women are treated in that male-dominated country. However, what they have seen and experienced is more than what they can have expected to see in a bar or nightclub full of drunkards and drug addicts. While the pilgrims were encircling the Black Kaaba, Malik and Malaika felt a great heaviness in their chests, and almost suffocated due to lack of fresh air. When the pilgrims began to stone the devil, Malaika had an unbearable headache. No one can convince her and her husband that there is no strong presence of unseen forces of darkness. On that day, Malaika thought that the devil would kill her for daring to step into his territory. Malik also fell extremely sick and began to experience nausea. It is nothing short of a miracle when those 5 days passed by without any one of them being suffocated to death during those unholy and immoral pagan rituals. Despite the many problems that Malaika Khan experienced during those 5 days, she was still able to talk to some Muslim women. She pretended that she was a new female convert to Islam, and working on academic research through which she wanted to answer the critique of non-Muslims in the West. Her husband had prepared a set of questions, and told her to ask every Muslim woman to whom she could talk. Most of the women she talked to are from Pakistan and India. Due to language barriers, she could not be able to speak to female pilgrims coming from Arabian lands and African countries. Every time she talked to a woman, she was amazed that almost all the Muslim women she interviewed gave similar answers to her questions. All of them denied that they had been abused by their fathers when they were under their authority, or that they got oppressed by their husbands when they got married to them. Additionally, all women said that Islam is a religion of peace and honors the woman. Malaika discussed with some of them some anti-feminine practices such as polygamy, child marriage, female genital mutilation, wife beating, the right of the husband to divorce his wife with or without reason, and her inability to divorce her husband. Custody of children after divorce goes to the father, and the inability of some Muslim women to go to school or work. Most of those pilgrim women said to Malaika that they do not see anything wrong with those religious obligations as long as they are justified by their holy Quran and the blessed Sunnah, sayings and deeds of Muhammad, of their gracious prophet. In other words, for those Muslim women, such practices as polygamy, female child marriage, female genital mutilation, and wife beating are not unethical practices because Islam commands them in the verses of the Quran and hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad. Chapter 5. A horrific Hajj experience of a Muslim woman in Mecca. Not every place in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is considered to be the holy ground of Islam. Only Mecca, Medina, and other small towns and villages are called Ard al-Hijaz, which means the land of Hajj. Foreigners and other non-Muslims who are visiting or working in Saudi Arabia can visit and live in every city in the kingdom except the land of Hajj. If a non-Muslim is caught in that forbidden holy area, he will be executed by the Saudi authorities. Muslims believe that if a non-Muslim, who is known as an infidel, pretends to be a Muslim and goes to those holy cities, he will be exposed by Allah. There are many stories of such intruders who went near the house of Allah, which is also called the Kaaba. As soon as their feet touched that holy ground, they began to shake, scream, fall on the ground, and began to roll around like epileptic people. Then those trespassers were arrested by the Kaaba holy police of Allah and interrogated. They admitted that they were not Muslims but pretenders. Shortly after that, they either got beheaded or stoned to death by the faithful Muslims on Friday afternoon. Many innocent people were caught in the past and accused of being pretenders or spying for Israel or agents of the West and put to death. Despite that, some non-Muslims succeeded in visiting the Black Kaaba without being caught. The most famous case is a Britishman called Richard Burton, who pretended to be a Muslim pilgrim and visited the Kaaba. Somehow, Mr. Burton managed to reach the black stone and take a small piece from it. When he safely returned to his country, he subjected the piece to a scientific test. The test proved that the black stone is part of the shattered pieces of a meteor. Before the advent of Islam, the Arab polytheists venerated two types of stones, volcanic and meteoric, because they believed the former erupted from the earth, and the latter fell from the walls of the house of Allah in heaven. When Richard Burton returned to Europe and announced his secret visit to the Black Kaaba, and his discovery about the origin of the black stone, he created great indignation within the Muslim world. The anger of Muslims intensified when he claimed that his discovery refuted all the false claims of the Islamic myths that the black stone is holy. The most widely accepted myth said that, when Adam and Eve were driven by Allah out of paradise and sent down to earth, Adam took with him one of the stones of heaven and brought it to earth. Then Adam built the first house of Allah at Mecca and placed that heavenly stone as a cornerstone. The Arab polytheists corrupted the Hajj rituals that Adam taught them and destroyed the house which he built for Allah until Allah sent Abraham and his son Ishmael, who rebuilt the Kaaba and purified it of all pagan worship. Once again, the devil used the Arab polytheists to corrupt the holy worship of Adam, Abraham, and Ishmael until finally, Allah sent the seal of all his prophets and messengers, Muhammad. Thereafter, Allah promised that after his final messenger, he would not allow anyone to corrupt the worship of the Hajj. Anyhow, after the secret visit of Richard Burton and his great discovery, the Saudi authorities became stricter with the pilgrims, especially those coming from Western countries. Before a pilgrim visa is to be issued to him at the Saudi embassies in Europe or America, his background will be scrutinized, and before admitting him to the Holy Land he will be carefully investigated and interrogated by the Saudi authorities. The Quran made so many false claims regarding the existence of the city of Mecca and the building of its Kaaba by Abraham and his son Ishmael. First, the city of Mecca was not there at the time of Abraham. It came into existence only in the 4th century AD. Mecca was built in the 4th century AD by the Yemeni tribe of Khuzai. None of the BC historians or missions such as Herodotus, Pliny, Ptolemy, the military missions of Alexander the Great, or the Roman missions, either visited Arabia or wrote about the tribes and cities of that region had mentioned a city by the name of Mecca. Estimates as to the era in which Abraham lived can vary from 2100 BC to 1800 BC. So, Abraham and his son Ishmael lived over 2 centuries before the city of Mecca came into existence. Therefore, the claim that Abraham and his son had built the Kaaba is false and cannot be proved by any historical record or archaeological evidence. Historians and archaeologists prove that Mecca did not come into existence until the 4th century AD, almost 2,500 years after the time of Abraham and his sons Ishmael and Isaac. The founder of the Hanafiya cult, Zayd ibn Amr, was the first Arab man to falsely claim that Abraham and his son Ishmael had built the Kaaba. Muhammad inherited this false claim and included it in his Quran. The best thing to conclude our accounts of the Hajj is to refer to a true testimony of a first-hand female eyewitness. A Western female convert, who dared to visit that hellish place with 2 of her close relatives, had said, "The Hajj is the most horrifying and immoral experience a Muslim woman could ever have in her life." She is a Muslim woman who performed the Hajj with her husband and sister. She made the following comments on her visit to the holiest place of Muslims: "What I saw in Masjid al-Haram was the worst sight of all. Masjid al-Haram is the biggest mosque in Saudi Arabia. It also is the largest mosque in the world. Located in the city of Mecca, it surrounds the Kaaba, the place that Muslims worldwide turn towards while performing daily prayers, and is Islam's holiest place." She continued to say, "I saw almost 1 million people squished in that small place, sleeping on the floor, on the steps, and even in bathrooms. Eating their food in washrooms was gross. There was no place to perform Hajj peacefully. There was not even enough place to breathe fresh air. There was a sea of human beings. Public bathrooms and toilets were full of feces and urine, and on top of that people were sleeping in those places, eating food, and exposing their small kids to those extremely noxious and contaminating environmental conditions where there was nothing but human filth and stink. Everyone was coughing and was sick, so many people were having food poisoning. Quoting from her article, Hajj, My Broken Dream, by Zina Zina. Zina continued to say, during Tawaf, when we must take 7 circles around Kaaba, I saw men squishing and squeezing other people without caring for anyone. I was shocked to see their aggressive behavior. Everyone wanted to go into that place and be done with 7 circles, so many people died because of the stampede, and I saw them dying, and other people jumping on their dead bodies without any feeling. While I was doing my circles, suddenly, I saw a few groups of black Nigerian Somali men and Iranian guys jump inside pushing others including women. It was such a chaotic gathering that I was shocked and speechless. All I was experiencing and observing were people pushing and pulling physically the weaker, letting them die, and then running over their dead bodies. A point came when these groups came closer to me. I felt my whole body being squeezed forcefully from both sides, and I felt as if I was dying any time, and I didn't feel that I could breathe till I gathered my whole strength and screamed, "Stop it, you animals, enough is enough. What use of these Hajj rituals if you have no feelings for your fellow humans?" Suddenly, I felt some kind of hand pull me out of this psychopathic crowd, and that was my sister, who rescued me. Thank God, it was the end of my last circle. By then I was pale, shivering, nauseous, and dizzy. All my dreams about performing Hajj were shattered by now. All I saw was extreme selfishness, filth, extreme cruelty, aggression, and psychotic behaviors of mad human beings. Where was the main essence of Hajj? Where was humanity? Where were humans? Most people were not humans. Yes, they were acting like some jungle beasts who were struggling for survival. Zina summarized her horrifying experiences by saying, "It is a violation of human rights to allow over 2 million people including young children to gather together in the name of religion called Hajj, subject to dying, being sexually harassed, plundered, wounded, being exposed to different diseases, sleeping with feces and urine, women being exposed to strangers in an unethical way, being used in the name of religion, being discriminated racially and based of gender, being divided as rich and poor, women being hijacked, raped, and then they were brutally murdered by Saudi thugs, being cheated by Hajj mafia or Hajj companies, and of being tormented by fellow humans." Quoting from her article, Hajj, My Broken Dream, by Zina Zina. Chapter 6. How did Egypt change from a 100% Christian country to a great Islamic nation? Following their short visit to the House of Allah, the Black Kaaba, in Saudi Arabia, the American lovers, Malik and Malika traveled from the holiest Muslim land to the greatest Islamic country in the world, which is called Egypt. They stayed for a couple of weeks in a small hotel in a crowded area called Al-Ataba, in downtown Cairo. They visited many tourist attractions including popular places like the Pyramids of Giza, the Sphinx, the Bazaar Khan el-Khalili, and the Al-Haram Street. During those 2 weeks, they hardly gathered any information about the abuse of women in the Muslim world. All the places they visited were crowded with semi-nude female foreigners and Egyptian prostitutes. Everything is allowed in those tourist sites, as if it is not a Muslim city by any stretch of the imagination. Nightclubs, liquor stores, bars, discos, beaches filled with women in bikinis, cabarets for Egyptian girls dancers, dancing nude, belly dancers, and prostitutes everywhere. Therefore, what the American couple has seen so far in the greatest Islamic nation in the world has refuted all the false claims that the Egyptian imam in the States had told them about his so-called holy homeland. The Muslim Brotherhood political party knew that the highest revenues of Egypt come from tourism. Therefore, during their political campaigns, they proposed to introduce halal tourism, and that could be achieved through the Islamization of tourism all over the country. They wanted to stop selling alcohol and putting burqas on all naked statues of the pyramids. They also proposed to force all semi-nude female dancers of cabarets, belly dancers, film actresses, female tourists, and thousands of Egyptian prostitutes to don hijabs or niqabs and close all nightclubs, liquor stores, bars, discos and beaches. This impractical proposal reminds us of the suggestion of some American Muslims who wanted to make for their daughters Barbie dolls and burqas in the States. When the Muslim Brotherhood won the presidential election and came to power, they could not immediately implement their impracticable proposal. No tourist, Arab or Westerner alike, will come to a country where alcohol is forbidden, women are forced to dance in cabarets while they are wrapped with black hijabs or niqabs, or visit a beach where girls are clad in ubiquitous abayas, niqabs and burqas. Before Muslims could implement their so-called halal tourism proposal, they were ousted out of power by the Egyptian army through a coup d'état. When the Egyptian police and military soldiers forcibly vacated the two gatherings of Muslim Brotherhood protesters, the Coptic Christians of Egypt were made the scapegoats. 101 churches had been attacked, looted, and burned down by Muslims. Dozens of Coptic institutions such as schools, monasteries, bookstores, and even orphanages were also attacked and plundered. Hundreds of Coptic stores, hospitals, pharmacies, businesses, and homes were similarly attacked. Hundreds of Coptic young women were kidnapped and raped. Some Coptic girls got gang-raped in their homes and Christian schools. Egypt was a Christian country for 7 centuries, until Muslims of Arabia invaded it in the 7th century and started imposing heavy jizya on its Coptic inhabitants. Those who could not pay the jizya were forced to convert to Islam on pain of death. The ISIS Mujahideen did the same thing to the Iraqi Christians of Mosul city. Obey, pay, or leave or die by the sword. Obey and become Muslims, pay the jizyas in pure gold, or leave homes and go out of the city. If the Iraqi Christians refuse to follow one of those 3 options, they forfeit their heads. Almost all the Iraqi Christians chose to leave their city. However, the ISIS Mujahideen fighters did not allow them to take even their passports or any identification papers. They confiscated their houses, churches, wealth, and all other properties. They were not allowed to take even their clothes except for the ones on their backs. Many ancient and modern church buildings were blown up and destroyed as soon as the Christians left. To understand why the Caliphate of ISIS behaved the way it did towards the Christians of Iraq, we need to go back in time and learn what the Prophet of Islam had done to the Jews of Khaybar city. Khaybar is an oasis some 153 kilometers to the north of Medina in Hijaz, Saudi Arabia. Before the rise of Islam, this fortress town had been inhabited by Jewish tribes. It fell to Muslim forces in the year 629. Khaybar was the second city, after Mecca, in its importance and military force. There was not any specific reason given by Muhammad for attacking the Jews of Khaybar except his claim that Allah said he had given the city to the Muslims. Khaybar was the 3rd city in size after Mecca and Medina, and was exclusively inhabited by Jews. The Jews of Khaybar had not expected Muhammad to attack them because they had signed a peace treaty with him, and therefore the sudden arrival of the Muslim troops was a great surprise to the inhabitants of the city. However, the city was well protected by its high and strong garrisons. For this reason, the Jews of Khaybar felt safe inside their strongholds and refused to listen to the Prophet's repeated calling to surrender to him. Quoting from Hurabdalt al-Rasul, Sayyid al-Kimni, 2001, page 444. When the Jews of the city Khaybar refused to surrender, the Prophet decided to use the catapults to destroy the garrisons. According to the Egyptian historian Sayyid Mahmud al-Kimni, the catapults had never been used in Arabia before that day. When the garrison Jews saw the catapults, they knew their death was near, and if the Prophet hit the city with the catapults, he would destroy it to the ground and everyone inside the city would perish. To avoid such devastation and mass death, the leader of the city, Kanana ibn al-Rabi, emerged from the city, holding the flag of surrender. He approached the Prophet and told him about the willingness of his Jewish people to sign again a peace treaty with him. The Prophet agreed on a treaty with the condition that they should vacate their city and leave for him their money, garrisons, and land, and they should not take a yellow or a white thing except that which cover their nakedness from their clothes. Al-Kimni quoting from Ibn Kathir, Al-Bidayah and Al-Nihaya, page 200. Moreover, Muhammad told the Jewish leader that if he hid anything from him, then Allah and the Prophet were free from that treaty. Al-Kimni, page 445, referring to Ibn Kathir, page 204. Al-Kimni also consulted another Islamic source in this regard. The Prophet Muhammad said to the Jewish leader Kanana ibn al-Rabi, "And if you hide something and I come to know it, then your blood and all your Jewish women are halal, and were booty permissible for Muslims." Al-Kimni, page 445, quoting from Ibn Sa'd, Al-Tabaqat, page 81. When the leader agreed to reveal everything regarding their wealth and money, the Prophet asked him about a treasure that he knew they had. The leader of the Jews denied the existence of such a treasure. According to Al-Kimni, the question of the Prophet was a trap to make the leader fall into its snare, because the Prophet knew already about the matter of that great treasure, and where it was hidden. Al-Kimni, page 445, quoting Ibn Sa'd, page 77. The information of the treasure had already reached the ears of the Prophet through a Jewish trader, who sold his people and revealed the secret of that great treasure. Al-Kimni, page 446. The Prophet ordered Al-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam to torture the Jewish leader until he revealed the hidden place of the treasure. According to Ibn Hisham, Al-Zubayr used a burning steel rod and tortured the Jewish leader until the latter died. Even so, the Prophet asked another Muslim leader called Muhammad ibn Salamah to strike off the neck of the dead leader, and likewise to chop off the neck of his surrendered brother Mahmud ibn Muslimah. Al-Kimni, page 446, quoting Ibn Hisham, page 43. After the Jewish leader and his brother were executed, the sword of Islam moved on the surrendered Jews and killed from them, according to the words of Ibn Sa'd, 93 men. Al-Kimni, page 447, quoting from Ibn Sa'd, page 77. The booty and the women of the Jews were distributed among the Muslims. Al-Kimni, page 448. According to all the narrators of the Sirah and the news, at the invasion of Khaybar, the Muslim men forced the Jewish women to sleep with them in an open gang rape. That day, the Jewish women were shared in sex by all Muslim mujahideen. This mass rape continued until the Prophet stopped the rape of the pregnant women. Al-Kimni, page 448, referring to Ibn Said al-Naz, Ayan, page 176. As for the Prophet himself, he took Safiya bint Huwaya after he killed her husband and father. Al-Kimni, pages 448 to 449, quoting from Ibn Kathir, page 197. However, at Khaybar, a Jewish woman, known as Zainab bint al-Harith, tried on the Prophet's life by feeding him a poisoned goat at the house of Safiya bint Huwaya. Al-Kimni, page 453, quoting from the historian Ibn Kathir, page 211. When the Prophet questioned Zainab, she said to him, "You have killed my father, uncle, husband and brother." Al-Kimni, page 454, quoting from Al-Bahaqi, page 257. Zainab was executed immediately. The poison remained in the body of the Prophet for 3 years until it finally caused his death. Al-Kimni, page 454, quoting from Ibn Kathir, page 211. Therefore, the Muslims believe until today that their Prophet died as a martyr because he was killed by a Jewish woman. Al-Kimni, page 454, quoting from Ibn Kathir, page 216. Muslims until today are proud of the defeat of the Jews of Khaybar. Palestinians shout proudly, "Khaybar, Khaybar, O Jews! The army of Muhammad will return soon." The Muslim mujahideen did the same thing to the Coptic Christians when they invaded Egypt during the 7th century. And they implemented that forcible conversion policy in every Christian land they invaded, from the Levant to Spain, including Anatolia, Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Sudan. Today, the ISIS mujahideen are striving hard to reclaim all those countries which their ancestors had invaded and Islamized by the sword. This is the gist of the ancient Islamic Caliphate dynasty. At least, ISIS fighters invented a fourth option that was not there before. obey and become Muslim, or pay the jizya to Muslims, or leave your house and city, or die by the sword. In those days, there were three options only: obey, pay, or die by the sword. Today, many people are claiming that what ISIS Mujahideen is doing has nothing to do with Islam. Whoever says such a thing is either purposely lying or does not know the history of the Islamic invasions or conquests. The Muslim invaders looked at Egypt as a fat cow that they had to milk. At first, all Egyptian Christians were ordered to pay the jizya or convert to Islam. Christian families who could not pay the heavy jizya were forced to surrender their children in the place of their jizyas. Many Christians of weak faith converted to Islam. The mass conversion of Egyptian Christians led to a decrease in the revenues that had been generated from the jizya. To compensate for that, the Muslim rulers kept increasing the amount to the jizya until it became impossible for many Christians to pay it. It reached the point that the cruel Muslim rulers began to demand jizya from the families of dead Christians. Farmers were required to pay besides the jizya another payment called kharaj, or land tax. Those who failed to make the two payments had their lands confiscated by the Muslim ruler. Christian leaders were often imprisoned and tortured, and would not be freed until their Christian communities paid huge ransoms to the Arab Muslim rulers. Besides all those evils, Muslim rulers encouraged the immigration of the poor Arab Muslims of Arabia to the rich and fertile Egypt. Therefore, in a brief period, the number of Arab Muslims in Egypt surpassed the number of Coptic Christians. Today, the majority of Muslims in Egypt and other Arab countries are descendants of those Christians who could not pay their jizya hundreds of years ago. Before the sword of Islam reached Egypt, it was a 100% Christian country. But now out of the 90 million Egyptians, only 10% are Coptic Christians. Chapter 7. Modern-day Islamic Caliphate in the Middle East. Today in Syria and Iraq, the Mujahideen, or holy fighters of the Islamic Caliphate, which is universally known as ISIS, have resurrected the old killing machine of Islam again. Thousands of Iraqi were slaughtered, and hundreds of Yazidi girls were raped and then sold as female slaves in the Mosul slave market. The problem of ISIS cannot be solved by bombing its Mujahideen. The more you hit them, the more they increase in number. Many Muslims and Westerners believe the lie that ISIS has been destroyed and eradicated forever. The dire situations today in Iraq and Syria reveal that this claim is the farthest from the truth. The 20 years of NATO military campaigns against al-Qaeda had enabled them to grow in number until finally, they gave birth to a group more dangerous than them, ISIS or the Islamic Caliphate. This group need not be treated just as a terrorist group. No. They are not only terrorists, but they are people with strong religious beliefs, which justify the killing of the so-called infidels, beheading their men, robbing their properties, raping their women, selling them and their children as slaves, and destroying their places of worship. Then they implemented their Sharia law in those lands they had taken. This is exactly what Islam did in those Christian lands it invaded. It did even worse than that in those Hindu lands it conquered. India lost 80 million people during the Islamic invasions of the subcontinent of India. 60 million Christian people were slaughtered by the early Islamic Mujahideen during their invasions of the Arabian Peninsula, Iraq, the Fertile Crescent or the Sham, Anatolia, Egypt, North Africa, and the Iberian Peninsula, modern-day Spain, and Portugal. Millions of non-Muslim women were raped, and uncountable numbers of the infidels' women and children were enslaved. Unless the problem of ISIS is correctly diagnosed and given its proper name, that problem will never be solved or go away. ISIS followers are true Muslims who follow the correct version of Islam that had been practiced by the Prophet Muhammad and his early followers. He had been followed by his four caliphs, Abu Bakr, Omar, Osman, and Ali. Those four caliphs were followed by the Umayyad Caliphate, Abbasid dynasty, Fatimid Caliphate, Mamluk Sultanate, Timur Sultanate. He is known in English as Tamerlane, Babur in Afghanistan, Mughal Empire in India, Ottoman Empire in Anatolia and Arabia. In modern times, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, Khomeini of Iran, and his Islamic Revolution, bin Laden, and his Al-Qaeda, the Taliban of Afghanistan, the Palestinian Hamas, Hezbollah of Lebanon, Ansar Allah of Yemen, the Somali Shabab, the Nigerian Boko Haram, Janjaweed of Darfur in Sudan, Lashkar-e-Taiba of Pakistan, and ISIS, also called the Islamic Caliphate State. These Muslim mujahideen of ISIS are not just terrorists and dangerous criminals, but they are victims as well. They are victims of false teachings that promise them, if they die in the fight, for a better life in paradise, where there are eternal virgins, who are waiting in heaven to receive them in their arms. A paradise that is in length, width, depth, and height as large as the heavens and the earth. A place of eternal bliss where there are rivers of wine, milk, and honey. Where there are not only beautiful virgin girls but young boys as beautiful as pearls. If truly there is such a place, as many of them say, then who wants to continue living in this miserable life which is full of evils and sinners? Why not blow yourself up inside a car or truck loaded with bombs, or a belt full of explosive devices? Why not die as Shaheed, holy martyr, and exit this life of never-ending misery and suffering and go up there where true enjoyment is waiting for you? This is why these Islamic mujahideen are so determined and fearless and compete among themselves to achieve shahada, martyrdom. Every one of them wants to be sent on a suicidal mission. Every mujahid fighter wishes to blow his body up in smithereens, and at the same time blow the bodies of the infidels in bits and pieces, and die as a shaheed, and go to paradise to enjoy his 72 virgins. Islam teaches about the martyr or Muslim shaheed. The Messenger of Allah said, upon him blessings and peace, he, the martyr, shall be wedded with 72 spouses from the wide-eyed maidens of paradise, reported by Ahmad and Al-Tirmizi. This hadith said the martyr shall get 72 virgins. Yet, in another hadith, Muhammad changed his mind and put the number of virgins in thousands. The Messenger of Allah said, upon him blessings and peace, every man from the people of paradise shall be married off to 4,000 human girls, 8,000 slave girls, and 100 wide-eyed virgins of paradise. They shall all meet him within 7 days. They shall say with their exquisite voices no creature has ever heard the like before, we are the everlasting girls, we never grow old, we are refined women, we never grow sour, we are the ever-pleased women, we never anger, we are the sedentary ones, we never travel away, blessings to him who is for us, and we are for him. Abu al-Shaykh in Al-Azimah, and al-Bahaki in Al-Bath al-Nashr. Can anyone convince a Christian, a Jew, a Hindu, or a Buddhist to blow himself up? No, he cannot. A preacher said, if God tells believers what he has prepared for them in heaven, then Christians will kill themselves. It is only Satan who wants men to kill himself, so that he can go directly to hell. God wants all people to have life, and have it abundantly. Jesus said, the thief, Satan, comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life, and have it abundantly. The Gospel of John 10, verse 10. Satan always steals, kills, and destroys the lives of innocent people through Muslim terrorists, and at the same time causes those terrorists to destroy their bodies in horrific and brutal ways. Islam is a big lie of the devil. Initially, ISIS was created, funded, and supported by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the Federation of the United Arab Emirates. Turkey openly supports the fighters of ISIS and opens its airports and borders to allow them to come in and pass to Syria and then Iraq. These same countries today joined the US-led World Coalition against ISIS, while some of them still secretly support them. The latest survey shows that 92% of young Saudi men support ISIS, and they are ready to join the newly founded Islamic Caliphate State in Syria and Iraq. Islam, eventually, will turn all Arab and Muslim countries into safe havens for those numerous terrorist groups, and make every country in the Muslim world a failed state. So far, some of them have already become failed states: Somalia, Libya, Syria, and Pakistan. Some of them have begun to disintegrate, such as Iraq, Yemen, Tunisia, Egypt, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Sudan, and Nigeria. After that, every terrorist group will occupy some land and implement Sharia law. At the same time, those small caliphate states or sultanates will be fighting against each other and the entire world. The Muslim countries were held in check for so long through dictatorship regimes and monarchies. Those two types of absolute government kept Islamic terrorists under control since the time those countries achieved independence from the British and French. However, the modern influences of the Internet and Western secularism created in those countries what is called the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring led to the removal of the long-ruling dictators such as Ben Ali of Tunisia, Gaddafi of Libya, Mubarak of Egypt, Ali Abdullah Saleh of Yemen, and Omar al-Bashir of Sudan, and diminished the ruling power of Bashar al-Assad of Syria. American and British troops by then had already toppled the dictator, Saddam Hussein of Iraq. Eventually, the remaining three absolute monarchies of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Morocco are going to crumble under either the Arab Spring or the Muslim terrorists. Then Turkey, Iran, and many more African and Asian Muslim countries will follow suit and disintegrate, collapse, and cease to exist as modern states. Secularism, founding a government and a society without God's assistance, or the religious texts of the Bible, or the holy scriptures of the Jews and Christians, but based on human ideas and governed by man-made secular laws, democracy, rule of the majority, human rights, all individuals are equal regardless of their gender, color, race, religion, caste, or ethnicity, women rights. Men and women are equal in every respect, children rights, no child labor, no child marriage or underage. Girls, no child soldiers, and no any other form of child abuse, and the like are all Western ideas and concepts, and have no existence in the Islamic religious texts, the Holy Quran, the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, the books of the four schools of Sharia, and all mothers of the Islamic books. These are foreign ideas and none of them can be found in the Islamic vocabulary. They were imposed on the Muslim world by the European colonization and modern Western influences. Shortly after the Western colonists left, those ideologies continued to survive through dictatorship regimes until the modern Muslim terrorist groups and the Arab Spring revolutions uprooted those long-ruling dictators. The removals of those dictatorship regimes are a curse rather than a blessing for the non-Muslim world. ISIS and other Muslim terrorist groups' ultimate dream is to establish a gigantic Islamic caliphate stretching from Vienna to Spain, Moscow to India, Istanbul to Yemen, Islamabad to China, Mogadishu to Morocco, and Jakarta to Burkina Faso. When such a vast Islamic state is founded and the Sharia laws are implemented, then they want to send their mujahideen fighters, the so-called lions and tigers of jihad, to invade the rest of the world as their ancestors did in the past. After all, Muslim scholars collectively agreed that all the Arabs in Muslim countries today are the descendants of former Arab Christians who were converted to Islam by the sword. Such an ideal and ultimate goal is based on the example of the Prophet Muhammad and his predecessors who ruled his Islamic caliphate states, and by the sword spread his religion all over the world. Today there are approximately close to 2 billion Muslims.